Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. So in today's video, we are going to discuss about again a very important concept in the Indian anthropology, which is in paper 2 of the anthropology syllabus of the optional examination of civil services. So in Indian anthropology, last class we have discussed 4 concepts, that is the concept of varnashram system, concept of the purusarth, concept of varn and caste, and what is the jati. And today we are going to discuss about again a very important concept relevant for India especially, that is the concept of Sanskritization. And in the Sanskritization, the themes that we are going to discuss is briefly what is the meaning of Sanskritization, how can we define Sanskritization. Second, we are going to discuss about the premises of the Sanskritization, how Sanskritization is achieved in the Indian society. Third, we are going to discuss about that what are the preconditions that led to practices of Sanskritization being followed by some of the society members. And we'll talk about the case studies, examples where Sanskritization has failed or it has succeeded in attaining its goal or objective. Then we are going to discuss about the Sanskritization in the concept of scheduled caste community of India, scheduled tribe community of India, and also from the perspective of the non-Hindus community of India. And last, we are going to discuss about what is the impact of Sanskritization in the Indian society on the Indian society, and what is the role of Sanskritization in maintenance of the social order of traditional Indian society. So let us start one by one and try to understand this. So first of all, if we try to understand the concept of Sanskritization, before we have to understand the structure of Indian society. And overall, if we try to explain the structure of Indian society in very simple terms, we can divide it into the 4 varnas that we know. We have Brahmins at top, then we have Kshatriya, then we have Vaishya, and then we have Shudra, and there is also the practice of untouchability. So we have untouchable. Now if we talk about Brahman, Kshatriya and Vaishya, they are considered as twice born caste because they are the one who are allowed to have sacred thread ceremony, that is also called as Upanayan Sanskar. So twice born caste. So that is the traditional structure of the Indian social system on the basis of Varna. So what we can understand from this particular structure, that some of the societal members or members of society, the caste or the group of class of society will be belonging to Shudra or untouchable. That means this classification has been done on the basis of the social status of each of the Varna, which is also clearly visible in the modern day Jati system. So as we can see, Brahmins occupied the highest position in the social status, social strata, and then we have untouchables at the lower rung of the same Varna pyramid. So basically, Sanskritization was observed by one of the most notable Indian sociologists, Professor M.N. Srinivas. And M.N. Srinivas, while he was doing study in different villages of India, largely when he was carrying out his study in the Kurg region of Karnataka, he published a book that is called as Religion and Society Among Kurks. And it is in this book he has explained about the concept of Sanskritization. So let us try to understand this in more detail. So what Professor Srinivas observed, that some members of a particular caste want to increase their social status, and while they are trying to increase their social status, mostly when he observed it for the first time, what he saw, that the people who are at the lower social state, who are at, we can say, lower rung of the social hierarchy, they try to emulate the practices, beliefs and traditions of the Brahmin caste. So the initial term that Professor Srinivas has used is what we call as Brahminization. That means the emulation of the practices, way of life, traditions and ideology of the Brahmins by the people belonging to the lower social status was called as Brahminization. Later on, Professor Srinivas found that this is not only limited to the Brahmins. That means people of the lower social status are not only emulating the practices of Brahmins, they are emulating the practices of such higher caste who are present in their vicinity or who are the most dominant in their neighborhood. Thus, this we can see in the context of Kshatriya as well. This we can see in the context of the other higher caste such as Thakurs as well in some part of India. And thus he replaced the word Brahminization with the term Sanskritization. That means if we have to define Sanskritization, how we can define it? Sanskritization is basically nothing but a type of acculturation process, It is a type of acculturation process through which a section of society try to elevate their social status, we can say. So Sanskritization is a type of acculturation by which a particular section of society, a particular caste in the society try to elevate its social status. And how it tries to elevate its social status? By emulating the practices of the nearby dominant higher caste and emulating the practices in the form of following the similar traditions, following similar belief system, following similar way of life, and even to the extent of following the ideologies of the higher caste. So this is what we can call as the Sanskritization. The Sanskritization basically tries to achieve elevation in the social status in what we can call as the cultural sphere of a particular society. It does not bring any structural change in the Indian social system. That is the most important point what we have to understand here. Whatever changes that we witnessed as a result of Sanskritization is observed in the cultural sphere of the Indian social system. The structure of society remains same as it has been for a very long period of time. So this is how we can explain and define the term of Sanskritization. Now, second point what we have to understand here, we talk about is the premises of Sanskritization. So as per M. Srinivas, we have discussed the first premise what we can understand is that it basically is related or limited to the cultural sphere of society. Second point what we can add is that it is a two-way process, a very important point. Sanskritization is not a one-way process, it is a two-way process. By this what we actually mean is that whenever Sanskritization happens, what is Sanskritization? When the people belonging to or the sections of the society belonging to the lower social status try to emulate the practices of the section having higher social status. But during this time, many times what also happens that some of the practices of the people belonging to the lower social status, lower caste, is also absorbed by the people of higher caste. That's most of the tradition follows from the higher caste to lower caste, but some of the practices, ideological belief systems, way of living is transferred from the people of lower caste to higher caste as well. That is why it is two-way process. Third, we can say it is a very long process, or we can say it is a very time-taking process, because the result of the Sanskritization you cannot see in a single generation. Even you have to wait for 2, 3, 4 generations sometime, and then gradually the people of that particular community start to get relatively higher social status. So basically that is why we are calling it as a very long process, time taking process. Fourth point what we can say, that it basically causes antagonism in the society, and many times it also give rise to violence. For example, if you look at the case study of Rajasthan, in Rajasthan recently it was news that a member of a caste who is considered as having lower social status in a village, the people or the person, the individual from this particular caste was trying to emulate the practices of higher caste in that particular region by sporting a mustache. That is the first thing. And second, also during the marriage ceremony, he wanted to do the horse riding ceremony, because as we know that many society in India, whenever marriage happens, the groom has to come on the horse to the house of the bride. So the sporting of mustas and horse riding ceremony in Gujarat and even in Rajasthan basically is related with the traditions of the higher caste. However, when this individual from the low caste started to do this, what we observe in the village is a very violent reaction, antagonistic reaction by the members of the higher caste, and there we also have a violence that ensued because people thought that it is only their right to have such kind of traditions and ceremony. So antagonism on violence. Fifth premises we can say is that there is a little change in the political power. Basically, if we talk about the political power, it remains still largely in the hands of people having higher social status, higher caste status, no matter what is the, no matter how much Sanskritization practice is being followed by the people from the lower caste. And last point we can understand is that what kind of practices is being followed in the Sanskritization. So some examples we can try to understand. So first example is sacred thread ceremony that is being emulated. Second is you have Jagaran, the concept of Jagaran. Third is the concept of Satya Narayan Katha. Apart from that, the concept of having teetotalism, depending on the reference group, as of course, teetotalism and vegetarianism. So these are some of the examples where we see that people from lower social status, lower social caste, who did not follow these practices before are following these practices to emulate the practices of the member of higher social status. So this is all we can understand in the premises of Sanskritization. The third and very important point is that why Sanskritization is limited or has been seen in only few societies of India. So the reason is very, very simple. There are certain factors that lead to the Sanskritization process being followed. What are these factors? So first factor we talk about is there should be increase in the economic prosperity of the caste or of the society, of the part of society to participate in Sanskritization. For example, if you talk about Sanskritization, Sanskritization is something that cannot be done by a single individual. It has to be done by a large section of a community. That is why we are calling Sanskritization. It is not individual approach. It is basically a collective approach of social change. And that is why this collective approach of social change cannot happen overnight. It only happens if there is increase in the economic prosperity of that particular caste. So when there is increase in the economic prosperity of that particular caste, what happens? There is increase in the self image of that caste in the eyes of itself. So it gave rise to increase in the self image or elevation or enhancement of the self image. As there is an increase and elevation in the self image, what happens? There is a more acceptance of their higher economic status by the other higher castes having the higher social status. So more acceptance among society. And finally, if there is no opposition, this is very, very important point, because many times even if all the factors are present there, but if the surrounding higher caste are very opposed to the Sanskritization practices being followed by the member of lower caste, lower social status, then obviously it does not happen. So no opposition by higher caste. So if these conditions or preconditions are met, then we can see the process of Sanskritization taking place in the different society, different castes. So increase in economic prosperity give rise to increase or enhancement of the self-image that causes more acceptance of this particular caste among the society as having higher status, and in the presence of no opposition by the higher caste members of the nearby villages or of the same villages, the Sanskritization process can be carried forward. So we'll try to understand with the help of example that where we have seen the successes and where we have seen the failure of Sanskritization. So first point we can see, if we talk about the caste of Uttar Pradesh, that is called as Nonia caste. So Nonia caste in Uttar Pradesh traditionally since the time of British were largely involved in manufacturing of salt. So when India got independence, the salt manufacturing was basically considered or converted as a private affair. So as it became a private affair of the Nunia caste, they actually increase their income manifold. Most of the members of this caste increase their income manifold, and this brought the first condition, that is the increase or enhancement of the economic prosperity. Now as economic prosperity increased, as the economic status of the Nunia caste increased, they have improvement in their self image, they are being more accepted by the society members, by the other society higher caste group as well, and there was no such organized opposition against the Sanskritization of the Nunia caste, and thus they were able to achieve increase social status via practices of Sanskritization. So that is one successful example. Other example we see in the same state where this became unsuccessful, that is the Chamar caste in Uttar Pradesh. Chamars in Uttar Pradesh. Now, Chamars traditionally, since British time, were largely involved in the business of leather. And after British went away from India, after India got independence, these castes also got huge economic prosperity in the leather business. But there is the problem. The leather business, if we talk about the traditional Hindu society, is considered as a polluted affair. That means anyone who is dealing with the leather, who is dealing with the skin of the dead animal, this activity is considered as a polluted activity. It is against the purity concept of the higher caste, and that is why even despite having higher economic prosperity, even despite having better self-image, even having a better status, economic status, they were not able to achieve higher social status in the traditional Indian society. However, among the Chamar caste, those people who were largely involved in leather business, they were able to increase their social status within the same caste group. That means overall, talk about the entire caste structure, we will not see any increase in social status among the inter-caste, but within the caste system itself, within the Chamar caste itself, in the what you can say is intra-caste system, the people directly involved with leather business having better economic prosperity, higher economic status, were given the status of Jatav, or they started calling themselves as Jatav to differentiate themselves from the people, from the members of Chamar caste who are still having a lower economic status, who are still living in the poverty. So two contrasting examples we have seen in the same state, where once Sanskritization has failed to achieve its objective, and once when the Sanskritization has able to achieve its objective, achieve its desired goal. So that is about the examples and case studies of the Sanskritization and how it has helped in achieving the social status. Now, if we talk about the impact of Sanskritization, what is the large scale impact we see? So first impact is what we can say, elevation in social status of people belonging to lower caste. Second impact is, since these people are trying to emulate the practices of higher caste, many times bad practices also become part of the social caste, we can say social strata, which earlier was not allowed in such practices. For example, the practice of dowry, that was largely limited to the higher caste, while the practice of bride wealth was largely related to the lower caste. So due to Sanskritization, what we are seeing is happening, that even in the people belonging to lower section of the society, bride price is continuously being replaced by the dowry. Third, what changes we have seen as a result of Sanskritization is that joint family is being given high importance. So we see the conversion of nuclear family into joint family. Fourth, what we see that the status of women or autonomy of women has been curbed as a result of Sanskritization. So less autonomy to the woman. Apart from that, what else we are seeing? We are seeing change in the practices in terms of the religious affairs. That means those elements of what I can say is higher society or higher caste has creeped into the traditions of the lower caste as well. So less autonomy to women. Religious affairs has been highly influenced. Largely, it is highest influence actually as a result of Sanskritization. You will see in the religious sphere of the life of the people. Then what else we can happen as a result of Sanskritization? So there is more and more emphasis being given to vegetarianism and teetotalism. What else we can see is happening? Because the entire caste structure of India is based on the concept of purity and pollution. So that is why now there is a restricted or restriction in the sense of what we can say as commensality. That means those caste group who has been able to reap the benefit of Sanskritization and has been able to achieve higher social status, they are restricting themselves from intermingling with the people who are belonging to the lower social status or lower caste status, such as drinking, eating food. All these are being heavily restricted. So these are all what we can say as the positive and negative impact of the Sanskritization that we see on this sphere of life in the Indian society. In this case, very important observation has been made by a noted anthropologist David Mandelbaum. And David Mandelbaum had tried to explain that what is the role that Sanskritization has played in the Indian society, what is its importance and significance. So he believed that Sanskritization or the possibility of taking part in Sanskritization is basically acting as a safety valve in the traditional caste structure of India. He simply believes that if there was no possibility of Sanskritization or the Sanskritization was not prevalent or not seen in the case of India, the people who are belonging to lower caste status would simply have walked away from the entire caste structure of India. That means simply they would have given their status of caste, they would have might have accepted other religion. As we have seen in the times of Bhim Rao Ambedkar, the Mahars of Maharashtra, the entire community walked away, shunned the traditional caste structure of the caste Hindu society and adopted Buddhism as their religion. So this was a what we can say is very rare kind of practice, rare kind of event that we have seen, and this could have become much more frequent in nature has the Sanskritization concept been missing from the Indian society. And thus he believes that Sanskritization is what he compared with the concept of carrot and stick, where Mandelbaum said that the Sanskritization is like a carrot. It basically keeps the people of the traditional caste structure attached with the same caste structure, because they believe that later when they will have more economic prosperity, they will have chance to take part in the social mobility, and thus they can increase the social status. So this is how we can understand the role of Sanskritization. It is basically a safety valve against the traditional caste structure of the Hindu society. And thus he says that if you look at the nature of the caste system in India, two very important characteristic we see. One, it is a kind of ascribed status. That means you cannot change your caste by having any changes in your life, by having any kind of economic prosperity, because once you are born in a particular caste, you'll always remain member of that particular caste. And thus, because of this ascribed status, because of its close nature, because of its what we can say as organic nature, the people have no other option but only Sanskritization to make sure that their social status is rising. So that is the role of Sanskritization in Indian society. However, again, Professor M.N. Srinivas also have clearly stated that Sanskritization is something that is not only observed in the caste Hindu society. He said that this is observed in even non-Hindu societies as well. And in this regard, the work of Professor Imtiaz Ahmed is very, very important. Imtiaz Ahmed, G. Ansari, and Yogendra Yadav. All of these have done extensive research, and they found out that even in Muslim community, in the Muslim religion, because Muslim religion is also, in the case of India, is highly stratified in nature. That means all the Muslims are not enjoying same social status. They are also having a lot of different strata, where some are having higher social status, some are having the lower social status. So in this case also we see the similar principles of Sanskritization being emulated by the members of lower social status to improve their social status. So Muslims also, it has been proved that there are the instances of Sanskritization. Similarly, a very important work has been done in the case of scheduled tribes. Scheduled tribes. So in the case of scheduled tribe, what anthropologists have discovered, that here we also are having the similar kind of process that we see. However, among the scheduled tribes, it is not the Sanskritization that is being followed. Rather, what we can write is that they are having the process of peasantization, or what we can call as Hinduization. Because most of the scheduled tribe members are living in an area where they are having a continuous interaction with the caste in the society. And traditionally, the caste in the society, especially the members belonging to higher caste, are involved in agriculture. So that is why most of the tribal members, or most of the tribe which in the ancient times, older time, used to depend on the forest resources, used to have some different kind of economic activities. For example, the Baiga tribes. So they are basically adopting the agriculture as their main source of livelihood, and also they are continuously following the beliefs, whether it is religious beliefs or other kind of beliefs and other kind of practices that is prevalent in the caste in the society. And thus, in that case, Professor Srinivas has clearly stated that the scheduled tribes are undergoing Hinduization, which is very, very good for the caste in the society, because the membership of the caste in the society is increasing, as it is bringing the people from the peripheral areas into the fold of the Hindu social structure. So that is the scheduled tribe. However, if you talk about the scheduled caste, they have not been able to take the what I can say reap the benefit of Sanskritization, because generally, if you look at the scheduled caste member, most of them are engaged in such activity which is considered as polluting in nature, against the concept of purity. And that is why, no matter, as you have seen the case of Chamar caste, no matter how much economic prosperity the members of scheduled caste is able to gain, they are not able to take the benefit of the Sanskritization. So the highest, or we can say the maximum benefit of the Sanskritization has been reaped by what we call as the other backward caste, because they are just having the lower social status. They are engaged in mainly these kind of activities which are not considered as polluting, and thus whenever they are able to increase their self image by improvement in the economic prosperity, we see the huge effort to increase the social status as well by the method of Sanskritization. And in this concept, we can add one more thing, that M.N. Srinivas also have observed that what about the people who are already having a higher social status in the society? What are the people who are belonging to the Brahman Varna or Kshatriya Varna? Because they did not need to take part in the practice of Sanskritization, but the societal change, the social change is also being observed in these caste group as well. So there he has explained that largely, instead of Sanskritization, they are taking part in what he referred as the concept of westernization. That means the people belonging to higher social status are emulating the practices that was brought to India due to contact with the British, or due to contact with the British rule. So modernization, westernization, these are the method of social change in the higher caste group. Sanskritization is a way of social change in the lower caste group. Presentization or Hinduization is the method of social change in the people who are member of the scheduled tribe group. So entire society is transforming from one age to the other age, from one period to other period. However, the way how this transformation and changes is brought is different in the different caste group. So that is all about the concept, a brief concept of Sanskritization. We'll discuss related the concept related to the same concept or same we can say topic in the coming anthropology classes. That is all for today. Thank you very much.